The static of the 70s fades out, replaced by the sharp, digital beep of an electronic watch. It's 1980. The disco balls are gathering dust, and the velvet suits are being traded for power ties. America is tired of the long lines for gas and the feeling of national malaise. There is a new energy in the air, electric, ambitious, and unashamedly bold. Welcome to the 80s.
In November 1980, a former Hollywood actor named Ronald Reagan wins the presidency in a landslide. He promises a morning in America. His message is simple: optimism, lower taxes, and a military so strong no one would dare challenge it. The era of big government is over. The era of the individual has begun. Wall Street becomes the new frontier, and greed is good becomes the unofficial motto of the ambitious young yuppies.
But it wasn't just about money. It was about the image. In August 1981, a new cable channel launches with a simple footage of a moon landing and a guitar riff. It's called MTV. Suddenly, music isn't just something you hear, it's something you watch. Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Prince become icons not just of sound, but of style. The music video becomes the most powerful marketing tool in history.
While the lights of the city glowed, a quiet revolution was happening in garages in California. In 1981, IBM introduces its first personal computer. A year later, Time magazine names the computer as its Man of the Year. Names like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates enter the public lexicon. Suddenly, the future isn't in space, it's on your desk. The digital age is born, and with it, the first video games. Pac-Man and Donkey Kong swallow millions of quarters in arcades across the nation.
The shadow of the Soviet Union still looms large. Reagan calls it the evil empire. The nuclear arms race accelerates, and the president proposes Star Wars, a satellite defense system that sounds like a movie plot. The tension is palpable in films like Red Dawn and The Day After. We live in a world of high-stakes poker, where the red telephone is the only thing standing between us and total annihilation.
The 80s were the golden age of the blockbuster. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas own the box office. We go back to the future with Marty McFly. We follow E.T. home, and we watch Indiana Jones outrun giant boulders. It's an era of escapism. At home, we exercise with Jane Fonda workout tapes on our new VCRs. We wear shoulder pads, neon leggings, and use enough hairspray to damage the ozone layer. Everything is bigger, louder, and brighter.
By 1984, America feels like it's on top of the world. The Los Angeles Olympics are a sun-drenched celebration of American dominance. The economy is roaring, and The Cosby Show dominates the airwaves, showing a prosperous, professional African-American family that the whole country falls in love with. It feels like the American dream has finally been perfected.
But the mid-80s also brought a harsh reality check. On a cold January morning in 1986, the nation gathered around TVs in classrooms and offices to watch the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. For the first time, a teacher, Krista McAuliffe, was heading into orbit. 73 seconds later, the dream disintegrated in a plume of white smoke over the Atlantic. The tragedy broke the heart of a generation and reminded us that progress often comes with a devastating price.
While the suburbs were watching Dallas, A new cultural force was exploding from the concrete playgrounds of New York City: hip-hop. What started as block parties in the Bronx was now a national phenomenon. Run DMC brought rap to MTV, and suddenly the sound of the streets was the sound of the youth. Breakdancing, graffiti, and the boombox became symbols of a raw, poetic rebellion.
At the same time, the world learned to dance for a cause. In 1985, Live Aid brought together the biggest stars on the planet, Queen, U2, David Bowie, to raise money for famine relief in Ethiopia. It was the largest television broadcast in history. For one day, the excess of the 80s was redirected toward global compassion. We realized that music could change the world.
Behind the neon lights, a shadow was growing. The AIDS epidemic began to take the lives of artists, thinkers, and brothers. For a long time, the government remained silent, but the bravery of activists and celebrities like Rock Hudson forced the nation to look at a terrifying new reality. Meanwhile, the war on drugs intensified as crack cocaine devastated inner-city neighborhoods. The Just Say No campaign was everywhere, but the reality on the ground was far more complex than a slogan.
As the decade closed, the impossible happened. In 1987, standing before the Brandenburg Gate, President Reagan gave a challenge to the Soviet leader. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. 2 years later, the world watched in disbelief as people climbed atop the Berlin Wall with sledgehammers and flowers. The Iron Curtain didn't just fall, it dissolved. The Cold War, which had defined American life for 40 years, was ending, not with a bang, but with a celebration.
The 80s began with a beep and ended with a crash, the sound of a wall falling. It was a decade of massive hair and even more massive egos, of digital dreams and heartbreaking losses. It taught us that we could be whatever we wanted, as long as we had the ambition to chase it. The neon is dimming now, and the 90s are waiting in the wings. But the echoes of the 80s, they'll play on forever.
To truly understand the 80s, you have to look closer at the living rooms. This was the era of the VCR. Suddenly, you didn't have to go to the cinema to see a movie. You went to the local Blockbuster, spent 20 minutes picking a tape, and made sure to be kind, rewind. The family dynamic changed. The television became a glowing hearth around which we gathered, not just for news, but for shared experiences like the A-Team, Knight Rider, and Miami Vice.
And then there was the fashion, a loud neon rebellion against the earthy tones of the 70s. It was the decade of the power suit with massive shoulder pads, designed to make women look as formidable as men in the boardroom. We saw the rise of fitness culture. Leg warmers and spandex weren't just for the gym, they were a statement. If you weren't wearing acid-wash jeans or a leather jacket with too many zippers, were you even there?
In the 1980s, the shopping mall became the town square. It was the kingdom of the youth. Teenagers spent their weekends under neon lights, fueled by Orange Julius and the latest hits from a Sony Walkman. The Walkman was a revolution. It was the first time you could take your personal soundtrack anywhere. It turned a bus ride or a walk in the park into a cinematic experience. The world was loud, but through those orange foam headphones, it was yours alone.
This was the world John Hughes captured in his films. The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. For the first time, movies spoke directly to teenagers, acknowledging their angst, their romances, and their desire to break free. It was a decade that celebrated being young, even if the world outside was locked in a nuclear standoff.
As we look back, the 1980s feel like a bridge. We started with analog tapes and ended with digital CDs. We started with the fear of a wall and ended with the joy of its collapse. It was a decade of intense contradictions, extreme wealth and extreme poverty, cold technology and warm human spirit. It shaped the world we live in today, from the gadgets in our pockets to the way we consume fame.
So let the neon fade slowly. Keep the memories of the synthesizers and the big dreams, because the 80s didn't just happen, they exploded, leaving a trail of glitter and stardust that we are still walking through today. This has been your journey through the 1980s. Signing off.
If you walked into a shopping mall in 1982, the first thing you'd hear wasn't music. It was the cacophony of beeps, chirps, and explosions from the arcade. This was the temple of the youth. Rows of glowing cabinets like Pac-Man, Galaga, and Asteroids demanded your quarters and your soul. It was a social hub, a place where high scores meant everything. But the revolution moved from the arcade to the living room. In 1985, a small gray box called the Nintendo Entertainment System saved the home video game industry. Suddenly, Mario and Link were members of the family, and saving the princess became the weekend mission for millions of kids.
The 1980s had a specific visual language. It was a mix of high-tech dreams and retrofuturism. We were obsessed with the future, but it was a future seen through neon pink glasses. Everything was chrome, glass, and grid lines. This cyberpunk aesthetic was born in movies like Blade Runner and Tron. It influenced everything from car designs to album covers. It was the look of a world transitioning from the messy, organic 20th century into the clean, digital 21st. We weren't just living in 1988. We felt like we were living in the year 2000 already.
For the children of the 80s, the week didn't end on Friday. It peaked on Saturday morning. This was the sacred time of cartoons. He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Thundercats. These weren't just shows. They were epic mythologies that sold millions of action figures. The toy industry and television became inseparable. It was a colorful, loud, and imaginative era where every plastic toy had a backstory and every commercial was a gateway to a new adventure. We learned about good versus evil through the battle for Eternia or Cybertron.
So we leave the decade of big hair, big shoulder pads, and even bigger dreams. But did the 80s ever really end? Look around. The music of today is filled with 80s synthesizers. Our movies are obsessed with 80s reboots. The digital world we live in was built on the foundations laid in those neon-lit garages. The 1980s proved that America could reinvent itself, could dream louder than ever before, and could find a way to dance even when the world felt fragile. The VHS tape is over. Please, hit eject.